Excerpt from Murdoch and the Gift of Candletide by Wayne D. Kramer. Zale shifted his girth in the cushy chair, readying the makeshift storybook upon his lap. If half the stories of our voyages were recorded, as I someday hope them to be, the pages would fill this house to the brim. This special tale of a Candletide past happened not so many years ago, and, to get the full effect of the holiday, I wrote it in the form of a Candletide rhyme. Do you girls remember the gents who are part of Murdoch's mates? I think so, replied Fawn. There's your first mate Dippy, right? That's right. Very good. And Jigglegut, piped Sage. Zale chuckled. That would be Wigglebelly, our cook and a senior deckhand. Beep, chirped Nova. Ah, yes, said Zale. Old Beep, our bosun. Then there's Quartermaster Fump, Master of Arms Chim Chum, Deckhand Hookney. Are those their real names? Asked Sage. Nope. Those are their Murdoch's mates' monikers. On our ship, that's as good as their birth names. Oh, and there's Jensen, a greenhorn. That means he's still got much to learn. Zale paused. The name of Jensen made him think of Starlina. Jensen and Starlina had become very close throughout their youth, a relationship that anyone could see was going well beyond just friendship. These thoughts brought once again a longing to see Starlina. Is that all of your crew, Pop-Pop? Asked Fawn, pulling Zale from his reverie. By the light, no! We're nearly 36 strong. But I think that's all you need to know for this tale. He cleared his throat. So, without further ado, I give you the Gift of Candletide. He flipped to the first page and began to read. On the trusty old Queenie, one Candletide night, I emerged from my cabin to a wondrous sight. From the prow to stern to the rigging below, all the decks of my ship were covered in snow. Deckhands threw snowballs, and the officers gawked. The ship's wheel was glittery, frozen, and locked. And then I saw Jensen slide down one of the rails, as both Beep and Chim struggled to steady the sail. Not a day earlier saw the deck swabbed by Fump, and the ice on the planks took me down with a bump. How my legs gave way as I fell to my butt, and Wigglebelly's sugar hams danced in my gut. I looked to the sky and gasped with a shiver, and realized we'd sailed right into a blizzard, when what to my old captain's eyes did appear but a miniature ship throwing hooks at our rear. "Grimkins!" cried my crew of those black-feathered fiends. "Keep them off this ship!" I yelled, "whatever the means!" But we didn't stop them from coming. They came. Somehow or other, those foes came just the same. I marched across the deck with a stomp of my boot, for I knew in that moment they were after our loot. And in moments like these, there is no time to be tame. So I looked at my crew, and I called them by name. Now Chim, to the weapons, the staves and the swords. Now Fump, to the crossbows, to fight off the horde. On Wigglebelly, ward them off with your girth. On Beep and on Dippy, make them regret their birth. And then came a jostle, a most unsettling sound, as our ships unexpectedly both ran aground. On an island we'd landed, as best we could look. We drifted into the western coast of Holbrook. I took to the land to assess what I could, and pursued the Grimkin captain into the wood. It seemed for an hour I ran and gave chase, till the ground 'neath vanished and I fell on my face. And then, in a moment, I heard within reach the shuffle of talons and a horrible screech. The Grimkin captain and I, we were trapped there together, in the woods, snow, ice, and extremely bad weather. I drew my saber, for I was prepared to fight, and Grimkins look meaner in the dark of the night. Then up we both looked at the sound of a bark, facing large clothed foxes, a beaver, an aardvark. Anthropods! We had fallen right into their trap. To protect their village, they had heard that trap snap. Then they hoisted us up, that Grymkin and I, and took us to shelter in a cave that was nigh. And there in that cave, I saw my entire crew. Across the cavern stood the Grymkin crew too. As I stared at them all, confused and befuddled, my mind felt foggy and especially muddled. Then came a greyed badger, looking older than grief. I knew in a moment he must be the chief. And I glared at that beast, my temper quite sour. For we'd all been made captive in just the last hour. But that badger chief, being wiser than wise, smacked down his staff and he fixed me with his eyes. And he spoke with a voice that was raspy and torn, like one who gargles sharpish rocks every morn. "Enough!" he shouted, so that everyone turned. "Your fighting is futile, and your pride be burned. You know it all, human. Have you any notion the reason these Grymkins caused all this commotion?" "Of course," I replied. "They were after our bounty, and for it they would have happily drowned me." The old chief grunted, to his troops gave a whistle, and up came his staff just as fast as a missile. His staff pointed straight at my Grymkin foe's head. "Well, human, you're wrong," that old chief badger said. "Your crews were both fighting in that icy breeze, and I tell you now you're both dumber than fleas. These Grymkins never cared to steal your great prize. Their ship was sinking. They were saving their lives. In the heart of that storm, they had sprung a bad leak. To be home for Candletide is all that they seek. But hate makes you humans and Grymkins quite blind. You fight when you meet, and you all lose your minds. We are all creatures blessed by light from above. We can all be at peace, and we can all of us love." And there in that cave, because of this wizened beast, Grymkins, humans, anthropods, all had a great feast. We shared tales of great battles, tales of far places. We shared tales of triumph, treasures, and new faces. Oh, how we laughed! Thump sprayed food through his teeth, and the table we shared was round like a wreath. Wigglebelly danced until he lost his footing. His girth shook when he fell, like a bowl full of pudding. And some hours later, the storm finally ended. We took time to thank the creatures befriended. And of course, these Grymkins we could not leave alone, so we loaded their stuff and helped them sail home. Ne'er would we forget how that night the tides turned, nor the friends that we'd made and the lessons we'd learned. And from the decks of our ship was heard clear as a bell, "Happy Candletide all, and may the winds fare ye well."